Hello, friends of ZDNet around the world. This is the official ZDNet show that we do each week at 2 p.m. Eastern Time live, and then also available afterwards wherever your favorite videos play. I've got my co-hosts, ZDNet's Kerry Wan and Sabrina Ortiz with me again. Hey, y'all.
Hey, what's up? I'm excited to talk all things Apple. It's been a big week.
I am just as excited, Sabrina, +1.
+1. That was nobody remembers Google Plus, but that was where +1. That was one of the places where +1 came from. Anyway, bringing it back there for those who remember it in our audience. We have some OGs in our audience who remember Google Plus for sure. All right, so
clearly not us.
Yeah, clearly not the two of you. Okay, all right, fair enough. The topic this week, of course, is the Apple event. We're going to do a recap of what we saw, what we learned, reading between the lines a little bit, and really what the impact of some of the stuff is, because we've had a few days for things to settle in. We've started to get a sense for what people are getting excited about and what we're still waiting for, what we didn't hear. So we'll talk about that and what a possible October event could look like for Apple. And then we're also going to talk about another one of our favorite topics, because it's been so popular throughout the year, which is smart glasses. So Meta Connect is next week. We're expecting to see some new smart glasses. We have some predictions. We have some thoughts. And there are, beyond Meta, there are a bunch of smart glasses that are coming this fall. So it's going to be the start of something pretty big. And we've even been surprised at how much people have been interested in smart glasses so far this year. All right, y'all, but let's start with Apple. What did you think about the vibe of this event, compared to the last few? What's the vibe check that you've done this week with people that both sort of inside and even outside of tech, about what people thought about the event?
I could quickly jump in just because it's fresh in my mind, because this was the topic and the thesis of my newsletter column this week. But I think Apple brought it back to basics, and people were really excited about that. For the last couple of events, we've seen them go all in on the AI craze. And then I don't think people were very excited about that, not only because of the bit of under-delivering problem, but also because people want to go to Apple for really fun, innovative products. And this time they brought the fun with funner form factors and colors and all the stuff. Kerry?
No, I feel pretty similar. I think it was a very safe event for Apple. If anything, it was very concise, I feel like, especially after watching the keynote. By the time it finished, I remember we were all in our sort of work office and we were wondering, wait, is that it? Like, is it just the 1 hour and 5 or 10 minutes? But yeah, I mean, Apple went with a pretty textbook event play, I guess you could say, with the iPhones and Apple Watches and the AirPods as well. I think there were a lot of questions going into this event, especially regarding prices and how Apple would build an ultra thin phone. And I feel like they sort of addressed all of that pretty methodically, I would say.
Yeah, the last 2 years for Apple have really been dominated by two things that are a little different, right? Vision Pro and then AI, Apple Intelligence. So both of the Apple events during the last 2 years had that impacted those a little bit, I think, right? That the Apple events didn't feel as Apple-y, right? They were still overshadowed by these two other products. And Apple threw it all off, threw all of that off, this time. Vision Pro didn't get a mention. Apple Intelligence didn't get a mention. Siri, I think, didn't get a mention. There was maybe a couple mentions of AI or machine learning, but really the two biggest machine learning AI topics they just talked about as features for their phones, and they just went all in on Apple kind of stuff, which is like thinner, really innovative, really attractive, really well-designed hardware, and then just like all in on kind of Apple ecosystem stuff. Like if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you use multiple products, that this stuff is going to work, really well, and it's going to work better than anybody else's system. Like that was the message. Like we've got great hardware and we've got an ecosystem that will put up against anybody else's.
I feel like
And
from the AI standpoint
it.
too, just from again seeing what they've done versus competitors, I think that their take this time was the best take. The best use case of AI is one in that it doesn't necessarily need to be labeled as it. It's just bringing you a helpful feature that you're using every day that you might not even consciously register as AI. And granted, it's a unique position to take when other companies like Google with the Pixel 10 just released what is basically an AI-powered smartphone. Yeah. But they could do that because they're positioned really well to do it. They have the technology to do so. For Apple, I think this more undercover incognito AI is so much better of an approach for them.
Yeah, and I mean, even the AI features that they did talk about, they did mention like a couple of times Apple Intelligence, but it was sort of it just happened very naturally, I would say. It didn't feel like it was forced upon you. And so two of the mentions, I feel like I apologize if I'm jumping the gun here, but one of them was what the live translations on AirPods. I think that one, it's like it kind of speaks for itself. They don't need to say that it's powered by Apple Intelligence to sell you on the feature. Same thing with the hypertension detection on the Apple Watch. That's one of those things where it's like, yes, they're going to use AI and build an algorithm to track your 30-day metrics. But instead of talking about how AI is playing a role there, they're just saying like, yeah, we're just going to be using your Apple Watch, tracking you every day. And the results obviously will be very impactful.
Yeah, I think that the way that they did this event, like it felt like it was a little more, Apple had a little more mojo and confidence, which you like to see, right? When somebody's unveiling a really expensive product that, you're going to try to decide, do I want to put my money down on this versus the last one I had, or become a first time, part of this ecosystem. Like you want people to be confident about it, right? You don't want to be like, yeah, you might like this, it could be good. It's sort of competitive. It's like, no, you want them to tell you, and be confident that it's the best they've created. It's the best one they've ever made. And so Apple's pretty good at that, right? They're good at the marketing spin, but there are times where I can see the difference is sometimes it doesn't always come across as confident to me. The Apple Intelligence stuff has never come across to me like they've got a lot of confidence that they've got the best, Apple based AI features. It's never been that, to me. This one was confident. As a matter of fact, they were even in some interviews that they've done afterwards that have started to, publish in the last couple of days. They were even out dropping some shade on other competitors, which surprised me. So there was this interview that they did. It was either with Tom's Guide or Tech Radar, and they were talking about photography. And they're talking about photography, and they're like, look, we've talked for a long time. We use machine learning, in our photography, and it helps make it better. But when we take a picture, we actually want it to be real. We want it to be something that has actually happened. And so it's like they were dropping all kinds of shade on Google, and even Google is a little bit sensitive about, this topic, right? And I think thoughtfully so. But just to see Apple saying like, this is the difference between ours. Like, we're not gonna, composite people in. We're not gonna, make you, take generative AI to fill in the gaps on something, on a feature. Like, we're going to make the picture you actually took and what looks like reality, the thing. And so that was like, I was like, okay, they've got some confidence in this. I like to see that. That means that they feel like, and they've tested and they know this product is pretty good at the things that it's meant to do well.
Yeah, also not to jump the gun, but because we're talking about competitors and because I'm dying to know, as I'm sure people here are dying to know, Kerry, you review phones, and Jason, you also review phones, and you went hands-on with the Air. I need to know what your thoughts are on execution, because it looks fantastic. From where I see it, looks fantastic. Specs were much better than I anticipated. They're promising all-day battery life. That sounds incredible. TBD, of course, with
Yeah.
testing. But I need to know from both of you, because this is your bread and butter. And Jason, you went hands on with it too. So I need to know.
Okay, definitely jumping the gun, but let's go for it. As good as it looked in video and photos, doesn't do justice to what it feels like when you pick it up. Like the product makes some serious compromises, and that's an issue. But when you pick that phone up, it's like, damn, wow, this is really good. It feels like what you would like your phone to feel like. Like I wish that the Pro phone felt like what that phone feels like, right?
Better
like
than the Edge?
That's similar. I think it feels very similar to the Samsung, Edge. I don't know why. Like I didn't get as much of a wow factor from the Edge, but the Fold 7, I know both of you know, I've talked to you, probably sick of hearing me say it. Like the Fold 7, when you pick it up, is like mind blowing. The iPhone Air is not as mind blowing as the Fold 7, like to be clear, because the Fold 7, you're like, this is a phone that looks and feels like my regular phone. And that's before it folds out. Then it folds out and you look at it and you're like, this is ridiculous. This thing is almost a joke. It's so amazing.
I'll just say that my reaction, or your reaction, Jason, just now is exactly how I was 5 months ago when Samsung released their ultra slim phone first.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that I think the Apple's execution is slightly different in the sense that the sort of design of the iPhone Air, I think, is the most impressive stuff. The things that are internally, I guess you could say, because the way they sort of designed the phone is that, yes, like there is that camera plateau is what they're calling it on the top, but effectively they've put every sort of main component within that plateau, leaving all the rest of the phone to have like battery and all the other sort of optimizations. They removed the SIM card as well, which I'm sure is a bit controversial. I saw in the news this morning that China wasn't allowing sales of the iPhone Air for some reason, just because of the physical SIM card versus eSIM. And so, I mean, there are obviously compromises, like you said, Jason. The all-day battery life thing, I definitely want to test that first before saying anything more or sort of believing in it. One thing I'll just note is that Apple mentioned that the phone will last 40 hours of video playback with the MagSafe battery pack on, and not necessarily with just the phone itself. And so, I mean, if we're just talking physics, like the battery is definitely bigger, or definitely smaller, than the standard iPhone 17. And so I don't expect it to be crazy long, but if there is some sort of optimization magic happening internally that will allow it to last from hopefully morning to late afternoon, I think that's better than what we expected, at least.
So Jason, you touched it. You said it felt like what you want your phone to feel like. Would that compel you, or do you think it'll compel people to want to purchase it? Like who's the audience? Like, do you think it's enough of a reason to get people to buy it?
I do. I think people will buy it? Yes. Because I saw the reaction in the room. Like I wasn't the only one. Like we were all sort of like, this thing looks and feels amazing. Even in that, some of the interviews that they've done, they said it exceeded their own expectations, and they were amazed at what their engineers had kind of pulled off on this. And that, I think they were pretty honest about that. Like I think they felt really honest. And feeling it, the phone, and talking to other people there and seeing other people in the room, I think we're all like, whoa, there's a lot of like emotional response to that product, right? And a lot of Apple's products are not about speeds and feeds and specs, right? They're really about emotional connection to the products. And so this one has that in spades. I think people will buy it. My question is how many of them will regret it? Because I do fear, similar to like what Kerry, you were saying, you also had an emotional response to the Samsung S25 Edge when you first did it, but the honeymoon wore off pretty quickly. Like by the time we got to more phones launching, like you were sort of like, that it looked and felt nice. But at the end of the day, I have to use my phone for a lot of things. And like, could I daily drive that? And I think your answer was pretty clearly no. I think my answer would be pretty clearly no with the Edge. I think if you're somebody, but to your ultimate question, Sabrina, if you're somebody who only uses like your phone maybe 2.5 to 3 hours a day, or 3, if now we have the those features that tell us how often we use your phone, I think you could get through a full day on it. But once you get over that, like 3.5, 4 hours, you're more like a power user. I don't think that phone's going to last you through the day. And I think the fact that they released this giant battery that goes on it with the phone is an acknowledgement of that, right? Like, this is pretty compromised for a power user phone. But there's going to be people who they only use the main camera on their phone. They don't have big pockets, right? Like, that's why that whole the new strap came out. It's mostly for people who don't have pockets or don't want to keep their phone in their pocket. If that's you, I think you would get this phone and probably feel really great about it and love it.
Y'all call me crazy, but I think that the perfect audience for this phone is like, I'm going to say my mom, like moms, like people who like, my mom is just, she's like, she doesn't take photos every day. She doesn't care to have the best camera. As a matter of fact, she was telling me yesterday how she wants the Pro Max. I was like, why? She was like, because I like the bigger screen. And I was like, okay. So this does have that advantage, right? It's like what, 6.5 compared to the 0.3. So it's a bigger screen. It's lighter, right? Like, you always hear people, like, again, older, or at least the folks in my family being like, the phones keep getting bigger. Like, they keep getting bigger and more annoying. Like, it'll fit comfortably in their pocket. My mom's not on it 24/7. Like, for doing what? So I think it's perfect for that audience, the audience that just always has wanted almost like a phone without bells and whistles, which is ironic because this phone has basically the most really innovative. But I think that's like the perfect audience for the phone.
Yeah, I had a similar thought even going into the event, where it's like, obviously there were rumors talking about how the iPhone Air, or back then it was called the iPhone 17 Air, I think that was the speculation. There were rumors that it would basically replace the Plus model, just because the Plus model is not as popular as I think Apple wanted it to be. But also, I think the way that the positioning works is that it really satisfies two audiences at the same time. One of them being the folks who want a big screen iPhone but don't want to pay for a Pro Max. That's already been there for a while. The second one is for the folks who really do want something that's innovative, something that's ultra thin and portable. Even though that might just be less than 1% of the user base in general, but it's still something, and then somebody. And so, I mean, the iPhone Air, as much as I hate to admit it, I think people will be drawn to it just for its appearances alone. It is one of those devices where people will walk into an Apple store, they'll pick up every phone, and then suddenly they get to the Air and realize, okay, like, this is something that I actually want. That emotional attachment is hard to beat. And so, I mean, like you said, Jason, I think people will be buying it. The big question is what their reaction is afterward, whether it's a week later or after a month, whether or not there's any buyer's remorse there. I mean, that's the big question. Thankfully, Apple kept the price fair. I think it was less than what I was expecting. I think we heard sort of things pointing to closer to $1,100. This one was just $1,000, which does undercut Samsung's S25 Edge as well. And so, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I looked at the sort of like interactions with pre-orders this morning, and it looked like the Air was constantly getting back ordered. And so, well, we'll see how it's like in a month and in 2 months, and obviously next year.
I wish I could daily drive it, like because it feels really good. But I because of the camera, I can't really, because of the camera and because of the battery life. Like, I've been carrying two phones for 15 years. As you all know, I carry Android and an iPhone. If I had the iPhone as my daily driver, my personal phone, I would have to shift over and do a lot of the things I used to do, especially like Zoom photography and other things on my Android, which I could do. That's a sort of very weird first world, personal problem. But I feel like I still couldn't. Like, it's just there are times when when you need your phone to do more, like for all of us. And we said this in our show last week. We were like, we're not a candidate for this phone. Like the three of us are definitely not a candidate. I think the same will be true for a bunch in our audience, but for the people, I think you all nailed it. Like for the people that walk into a Verizon store or a T-Mobile store or an AT&T store or an Apple store, and they have to feel a couple different phones, when they feel that phone, I think there will be a bunch of emotional purchases. We'll just see how it goes. But I think over time, it does bode well because like it is a really innovative design. They did some new things in it with their C1X modem, with the N1 wireless chip. They put some of their more expensive components in it, their more cutting edge components in it. And that was what helped them make it thinner and really just a very cool design. I think that the rest of the phones in the, iPhone 18, 19, 20, maybe even other phones will benefit from it. Like it's going to make the rest of our phones cooler in the next few years, I think, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad they put the A19 Pro chip on it as well. I think that's the main reason why it's like even pro users are considering the Air at this point, even though they know that there's the drawbacks of battery and endurance and the lack of cameras. But yeah, I mean, the fact that there is the Pro chip in there, the fact that it's not named iPhone 17, I think Apple's positioned it pretty well. It's clearly not just targeted to people who want an upgraded version of the standard iPhone 17. It's basically its own beast.
How about the claims that it's their most durable phone yet? I thought that was kind of crazy because it's so thin. I believe it for the materials, but
yeah, because it is still titanium, which is hard to bend. It's a very durable and sturdy, material. In that video I mentioned, I forget which one it was. I think it was the Tech Radar one. Joswiak, tossed the phone across the room. He's like, what do you think? And he says, try to bend it. And like Lance Ulanoff tries to bend it, like it on screen and couldn't bend it. Then they multiple times they tried to bend it and couldn't. So now I don't know, if that was us and they tossed it to us, like how hard would we truly try to bend it? Right. I don't know. But still, I think that does bode well. I think that it's they're going to be bend tests, all of the other channels out there, right? People are going to be trying to bend it. Jerry Rig Everything's going to be out there trying to bend it, next week. We'll see. But I think that it does look like they've done some good work and some really, they've been working on this for a while. And it does portend the fact that they were able to miniaturize this. I mean, the last thing I think maybe on this phone is just that it does pretend that next year, they're likely going to be announcing a foldable. And I was not excited about Apple doing a foldable at all, not 1%, until I tried the Galaxy Fold 7, because it's really good and it's the same size as a normal, flagship phone. And if Apple does that, and they're likely working on Samsung, right? A lot of the components that Apple would need to build a phone, they probably will have to buy from Samsung, including folding screens. So it's likely that, and Samsung's fine, right? Like Samsung's like, great, we'll make one. You can be competitive with us. You buy the components for us. Like we win both ways, right? We'll see. But I think that because they made the iPhone Air, they are definitely on course to make the Fold next year.
Yeah, the last bit that I'll add about the Air is that I think you mentioned before what the vibe is going to this event. I think a lot of people were sort of pushing it to the side just because we know what to expect or what we're expecting from Apple next year and the year after. Obviously, just things that I would say are, even after looking at the iPhone 17 series, are still much more ambitious. And so what I will say is that after going to this or watching this event, I think Apple's sort of set a good enough of a foundation to keep them going until those bigger phones arrive next year. Until then, I think the 17, the 17 Pro, and the 17 Air, those are good enough for most people, including the enthusiasts.
Yeah, Right on. All right, let's talk about the pros real quick. And then we don't want people to sleep on the 17 because we're going to talk about the fact that the 17 is actually a lot better than people realize. And there's some hidden upgrades in there and some things to really like about it. So we'll talk about that in a second. But we have to talk about the pros because the pros got the biggest upgrade. And we talked a little bit about this last week, that if they change the design of it, it'd really be the first time in like 4 or 5 years that we've seen a big change in the design. And boy, did they make a big change to the design. What was your all's reaction to seeing that, right? The new camera plateau, it's not a camera bump anymore, the camera plateau, and some of the other, the colors, right? All of those kinds of things. What was your immediate reaction and what have you been your thoughts since?
Very on brand for me. I was oohing and eyeing at all the colors. I'm super excited that Apple remembered that there is like a color palette, lots of hues on it that they could pick from before the Pro line. The Pro line's always remained very neutral. I remember last year when I was buying the 16 Pro, talking to y'all and you guys being like, what color are you getting? And I was like, yeah, you know, the girliest one there was, which is like the desert, but it's really just nude. It's kind of pink, maybe a little bit. Still not very girly. And I actually saw a lot of commentary on this online. They reserve all of their pastels for the 17 and more of their like, you know, more all-terrain, outdoorsy kind of colors for their Pro line. But the orange is really, really actually beautiful. And I hate to like just hop on that bandwagon, but I expected it to be, you know, again, a nice pop of color. But from the videos, even the videos y'all sent over, you, Jason and Nina, it looks actually very beautiful. The sheen, it's sleek, it looks good. And that's what I've been seeing a lot of online, and that's what I'm the most excited about personally too.
Yeah, I am on a similar boat. I think having a splash of color helps a lot with the Pro models. In fact, I think Apple took a bigger risk this year beyond using an orange color, and it was the fact that there isn't a black iPhone 17 Pro series device. I think it's just the white, the blue, and the cosmic orange being the colors. Right. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of people commenting about that, asking why there isn't a black one. I think a lot of people sort of underlook the fact that the black and white colors are, in fact, the most popular ones when it comes to these flagship devices nowadays. And so there is very much an audience for that. But yeah, beyond that, one thing that I will say is that after looking through the whole keynote, I feel like the iPhone 17 and the iPhone Air are actually more interesting than the Pro devices this year. I think it's sort of taken a bit of the thunder out of the Pro models. Pro models, we're always expecting better cameras and maybe a couple of design feature changes, but I felt like this year there weren't as many that were significant enough to warrant interest, even from perhaps users who are on iPhone 15 Pro, 16 Pro. I was talking to my brother after the event. He's currently using an iPhone 15 Pro Max, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to keep this phone for maybe a year more. Obviously, that is just
going foldable next year.
Maybe that's what it is. I will say, though, that's obviously not everybody. There is somebody in this room right now who said that she's going to upgrade from a 16 Pro to 17 Pro. So I definitely just speak for myself and my sibling.
I was like, who are you sure you're talking to me?
Here's the thing that's so interesting about what they did this year. And there's some things for our audience, which are often power users, right? And professionals who are using these things a lot. This was a year for that crowd. And so for like the ZDNet audience, like this is your moment. Because what they did with and it's interesting because these things tie in the aesthetics, the colors also tie in with what they did as well. And here where I think it starts, the biggest problem that I have with the 16 Pro Max, which is what I drive daily, is if I start doing a lot of things with it, it gets so hot. It has serious overheating problems. I'm surprised that it isn't a little bit more of a scandal than it was, because that thing gets super hot. And I'll give you an example. This year, and this tells you how good the cameras are getting. You all know that I love taking, especially at events, I actually really prefer taking a lot of photos still with a big camera, with my Sony mirrorless camera. And so I always will take I'll take 4 or 5 times as many photos with my Sony camera as I do with the iPhone, because these photos, we only have a certain amount of time. Like, they have to be right, they have to be good, and they have to be like ready for us to publish. So I trust that Sony still more. Instead of taking 4 to 5 times as many with the Sony as with the iPhone, I took about as many with the iPhone as I did with the Sony, because the cameras have gotten a lot better in the Pro Max, in the Pro line. But here's the problem with that. My phone got so hot because I was taking all of those photos and I was taking videos. My phone got so hot that I was once it gets hot, as you all know, and our audience knows, it starts dropping battery life like crazy, right? The battery life starts to plummet as soon as that thing gets hot in your hand. The battery life starts to get really bad. So what did they do? How does that relate to the 17? In the 17, they did 2 things. They switched materials. That titanium, it holds in heat. It does not dissipate heat very well. So they went back to, remember 2 years ago in the 15 Pro and Pro Max, they made a big deal about titanium, right? Like, that was the whole marketing pitch. It's now titanium. It's the, space grade titanium they talked about. Like, they only make phones that could go to space, apparently. So no space grade titanium, but they went back to aluminum, and then they created this vapor chamber in it. Now, other Android phones have done this before, the vapor chamber that helps with the cooling. But by going back to aluminum and doing a vapor chamber and then making this, the back of the phone partially glass and partially aluminum, what they say, and we'll have to test this, and we will, what they say is it's just going to, they didn't make a big deal about this, but they did start to mention it kind of quietly, that this thing is going to be a much better dissipator of heat. On my 14 Pro Max, I didn't have the overheating problems that he did on the 15 and the 16 with titanium. So I do believe it's going to make a difference. Plus, they have that chip that runs the 19 Pro, the A19 Pro, that runs cooler. They have the vapor chamber, and they did that materials change. Now, because they did that materials change, Sabrina, that's how they were able to do cooler colors too. Because with aluminum, you can do all kinds of cool colors that you just can't do with titanium. It's not available. So it's funny, the things that they did that were technically important also let them have, make a better looking device. Now, what they said, they only did 3 colors this year, right? They usually do 4. What they said is there's the light phone. I still prefer white. Like, if I had my choice, if I was going out and pre-ordering one today, I would pre-order the white. If they have the white, and then they have the one dark color. So what they're calling the blue, that dark blue, that's essentially the replacement for black. Is they're saying we're doing one light color, we're doing one dark color, and we're doing one fun color, and that's the orange. I don't like orange. I'm not an orange fan, but I will say I do agree, Sabrina. When I saw this one in orange, I was like, all right, that orange, that's a pretty good orange. There are some bad oranges that look a little like pukey. This is not a pukey looking orange. It's a little more of a it's a very reddish orange. And so it has this sort of very kind of like vibrant, not neon either. It's not neon, and it's not like, 70s carpet orange. It's like a nice, like red, very bright, vibrant orange.
Kerry said in the office, what did you call it? Penny-like, copper-like, I think you said. And I think that was a pretty good comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many different orange objects that we can compare it to. The one that did come to my mind, and I don't remember the exact product name because they're always so confusing, is Teenage Engineering. They're a European-based design company. They make a bunch of unique looking audio products, and they're also the folks who are behind a lot of the Nothing products that we've seen. They partner with Nothing to make their phones and earbuds and stuff. They've made like a PC desktop basically that is orange, and the color I believe is actually just about the same as the iPhone 17
Oh, wow.
Pro, the cosmic orange one. I wish I could pull up 2 images right now, but I can't. So you guys are just gonna have to trust me. But yeah, one thing that I will add to what you said, Jason, about the battery stuff as well as the vapor chamber cooling, is that one of the upgrades that I sort of missed, but I caught on later on, was the fact that these new iPhones, including the non-Pro ones, support 40-watt wire charging, as in they charge a lot quicker, if not double the speed as last year. And so the rates that Apple were saying, I believe it was 50% in 30 minutes. Take that for what you will. But, the vapor cooling chamber does benefit that faster charging as well. It prevents the phone from overheating when it's charging at faster rates. It prevents the phone from overheating when you're gaming and charging your phone at the same time as well. And so those are one of those that was one of those changes that sort of I caught again later on. But once I caught it, I was like, wow, that's a pretty big upgrade for these devices. And it puts it a little bit closer to a lot of the other Android flagships that for the longest time have had fast wire charging.
Yeah. All right. Let's do the lightning round now. Let's do iPhone 17. I want to hear from you, Kerry. You've got a big opinion about that, and I'm mostly on board. AirPods Pro 3, because that was really interesting. I did get a demo there, so I can talk a little on site that I can talk about. And then Apple Watches didn't get as much, so we'll take like a short moment for that. Apple Watches still have some sort of systemic challenges because of from rings that they didn't fully address, in this, but they did a little bit. And so we should talk about that. All right. So Kerry, talk to us about the iPhone 17, the base model, which is people are sleeping on this one because actually it is the low key, maybe biggest, most like bang for your buck upgrade that we got this year.
Yeah, so I will say first of all that we have delegated Sabrina to review the iPhone 17 for ZDNet, and afterward I realized that I'm kind of jealous of that because it is such a nice phone. But yeah, I mean the biggest changes this year, I would say there are probably three. The first one, in my opinion, is the 120 hertz ProMotion display. For the longest time, the biggest sort of downside of the non-Pro iPhones has been that refresh rate on the display. It's always been 60 hertz. It's one of those things where if you don't know the difference, I tell you not to look for the difference, because just stay with 60 hertz. The moment you experience 120 or even 90, it totally changes your perception of a smartphone and any other electronic.
The last 2 years at the iPhone event, this was palpable because when you handled it the first time, both the past 2 years, just the look on your face, and you're a very stoic guy, very positive, but just like the look on your face when you picked up the base model iPhone the last 2 years was just like, oh no, not again, not another 60 hertz screen.
Yeah, again, like what I was saying, a lot of these new iPhones, people will experience them in stores, and that's when they'll get that aha moment. And that, I feel like the 120 hertz is one of those features that they'll notice, because one thing that a lot of people do a lot when they walk into a store is they take their own phone out and they compare it to the new ones. And I think once they do that and they see the difference between, let's say, a 60 hertz screen and a 120 hertz, that's when they'll say, okay, yeah, like this is a bigger deal than it should be. That's the first upgrade, in my opinion. The second one is
also
actually
3000 nits too. Sorry, Kerry. I was just going to say,
oh, yes.
The screen also bumped up to 3000 nits. So it's a much brighter screen. It's smoother, it's faster, and it's brighter. So it's like huge upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big practical upgrade. The 3000 nits, the 120 hertz, that also allows the iPhone 17 to support always on display. That's not something that the iPhone 16 was able to do, and even the 15 and 14 before that. And so it's one of those features that, there's a lot of benefits to it, more than what's on paper. And beyond that, the second sort of upgrade, in my opinion, is, and I'll sort of keep it to two just so I could let Sabrina talk a little bit more about the device as well. But the second one for me is that 18 megapixel center stage front camera is what they're calling it, I think. Just one of those features that I think Apple is able to hide through all the rumors, because you just can't expect it by looking at supply chain leaks and the hardware alone, right? You have to look at the software and the sensors within. And so going into this event, I was really trying to figure out what would be that sort of dynamic island moment for Apple And I felt like the selfie camera was that. It was one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, once you see it in action, you're like, wow, like why have other phone makers not thought about this? One thing that you wrote in our blog, Jason, is that you expect more phone makers to carry this feature over to their devices next year and, you know, the years later. I expect to see a lot more of that at Mobile World Congress next year. So within months, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kerry, you stole what my biggest moment was going to be, and it was definitely the same. The selfie camera. I do think it's also a cool incorporation of AI. I don't know if you specifically highlighted this, Kerry, but like they'll automatically reframe the shot to like either both a horizontal, vertical, and also widen the shot to fit other people around you. I love that because it's one of those things where I don't think I've ever sat there and been like, dang, it's such an issue. But it's going to be one of those things that once I start experiencing it, and it happens all the time, going to a phone that doesn't do it, it's going to feel like, oh, I have to do this myself now. And I love upgrades like that because, again, the more subtle and the more helpful, the better. I mean, altogether, what a fun upgrade, right? Like it's one of those things you're taking selfies every day, whether you want to purposely to post them because you're a content creator or just because you're taking one of like your family, your dog, your pet, this or that. And that was what stood out the most to me.
Apple said that iPhone users take 500 billion selfies a year. So that's like a lot of moments where you can really notice this feature. It works really well too, y'all. When I was doing the demo on hands, I kept doing this. with the phone. And then I was like, and he was like, stop turning it. Stop. Don't turn it. And I was like, why? He's like, it will do it automatically. Here, look, I'll show you how. So basically, because it's a square, you can just tap it and tell it to switch to landscape mode. And then you can also hit, this is where the AI comes in. You can also hit the settings and say, do it automatically. And then you hold up your phone and then it recognizes all the faces around you. And then it automatically will switch it from landscape to portrait. Now you're holding up your phone in, vertical the whole time, but because it's square, the sensor, it can switch between the two. It worked really well in the demo that I did too. I was like, okay, because I was thinking the same thing. This is the dynamic island moment. This is the sort of the killer feature moment, but will it actually work? And it works really well. This was new this year, but they also had a demo area for some of the folks some of the journalists and creators who attended, and they let us go and take photos with the phones. And like not under embargo or anything. And that included, taking selfies with the phone in addition to just the hands-on demo area. And so, yeah, this feature, every phone is going to have this feature within 2 years, every one of the leading phones, because it's that much better. And it's funny because there are some people out there. There's this photographer that does phone reviews, mostly iPhone reviews, Tyler Stallman. And he's been saying for a couple of years, like that selfie or front facing, I think he called it the front facing camera. Front facing camera should be a square crop. And I sort of didn't get it. And then when Apple explained it, this is why, like Kerry said, like even a lot of this stuff leaked, but until Apple does its like storytelling around it, and like, here's how it would work, and here's what you'd use for it in real life. A lot of it doesn't always make sense, right? It's a square crop front-facing camera made no sense to me until Apple explained it, and then I tried it in the phone. I was like, oh, yeah. Why would you do anything else? We're going to all wonder, like, remember when we used to have to like switch like this with our selfies, and it didn't do it automatically, So that was a killer. All right. The other thing, Kerry, you and I talked about with the 17 is, they bumped up the base storage from 128 to 256, which is smart because 128, with the way photos are now and all these big megapixel cameras, going to fill up your camera really fast if you take any amount of photos. And they didn't raise the price. So they essentially made the screen so much better. They made the camera experience so much better. Then they doubled the storage and they kept it the same price. This is essentially a 16 Pro, because it's the same size as the smaller phone, a 16 Pro without the back camera for $800. So a week ago, before this, you could buy that same phone for $200 more. No, $300 more, $200, $300 more, $200 more. Sorry. But just with no zoom camera. And not everybody loves a zoom. I love the zoom. Zoom is my favorite one. I use it all the time. But most people I find don't. They just use the main camera or the wide angle sometimes. This thing is like that 17 is essentially last year's Pro without the zoom camera. That's it. Otherwise,
I'm glad you brought up pricing, because I do a lot of these news spots, and a lot of things I was getting asked about was pricing, and I kept hearing like, well, the phones got raised $100 across the board, which isn't exactly true, because if you compare the actual specs, there's actually a lot more bang for your buck, especially to when you look at the Pro model too. There was like $100 difference there, but again, the storage being doubled. Like I, for one, can never survive off 128 gigabytes. I physically can't. My phone, even with the 256, I'm pushing it.
That'll last you about 48 hours.
Exactly. You remember before I upgraded to my 16 Pro, my phone every single day, I'd be like, guys, I'm sorry, I don't have a phone. It's not working because it's out of storage. And then I would delete stuff and it was out of storage in 15 minutes again. So anyways, I love that you brought up pricing. That was huge. All eyes were on Apple this time for pricing because of tariffs. And I feel, at least my interview, I talked to some analysts too for an article I wrote in Zena. If you want to learn more about the price breakdown and why the prices fluctuated the way they did. But it seems like tariffs weren't really a matter of consideration of prices this year, which is good news for Apple users, and more so a bump in specs, which is awesome for us.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, I would expect the price hikes to happen next year when there are more newer looking devices, because then Apple can really just pitch it as just, this is a whole nother device. This is the new price point that we're setting for it. And less so making it about being like successors. But like you said, Sabrina, I think the pricing this year, it's probably even better than we expected, just because it is the same, but you're getting a lot more. Storage is one of those things I think everybody could benefit from. It's one of those things that people, even if you're not a tech enthusiast, you'll take notice of. And so, like even if there isn't a 120 hertz display or an 18 megapixel selfie camera, if it's 256 gigabytes for the same price, people will hop on that.
Boom. Yeah. And they also, one of the ways you could talk about they raised pricing was the most expensive iPhone they make, which is now a iPhone 17 Pro Max with 2 terabytes of storage. This is the Sabrina Ortiz model that is now $2,000, right? But I remember Sabrina, when I first met you and you showed me your storage maxed out on iCloud, maxed out on Google Photos. You were the first person I met that had maxed out all the cloud services before they raised the limits on them.
And I'm embarrassed to say that I'm currently signed out of one of my personal Gmails because I've exceeded the storage on Gmail too, again, through Google Photos, where I cannot receive emails. So it has not gotten better, y'all, even 3 years later. But at least my actual phone's functioning because we've upgraded to 256 gigabytes. So
very good. So the last thing I'll say about the Pro Max is this is the first year that I can remember in a long time, maybe ever, where I would recommend to some people who have the 16 Pro Max to upgrade to the 17 Pro Max. That's almost never been the case for at least the last 5, 6, 7 years. But if you are a person who, like me, uses your phone a lot, it's overheating, then your battery starts dropping like crazy, and it gets super frustrating. You're probably going to have, now wait until we'll do full reviews. So let me test this before I make the recommendation to folks out there. But if you're in that boat with 16 Pro Max, and you can get a good deal from your carrier, or you can, switch to the iPhone upgrade plan or something like that, where you can get a new phone every year essentially and pay the same, essentially. It's like leasing a vehicle. There are a lot of people I'd recommend to, more than ever, that I'd recommend upgrade sort of year on year because of both the thermals, the battery, and the issue with the overheating, and better cameras. When I tested those cameras, so they had remember they introduced the 5X telephoto. They went to a 4X. And so I was like, but it's a 4X 48 megapixels. So it went from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels. So they do what is essentially a crop in half, right? To give you an 8X zoom, but it is an optical. It's not an optical zoom, but it is an optical image because they're not using digital zoom on that, right? Is it an actual crop of a much bigger sensor? My first photos, and I sent them to Kerry yesterday. My first photos were really good, like very sharp, like the 8X. I was like, okay, this. I'm going to have fun, playing with this. I'm also testing the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL right now, and it does that like crazy 100X zoom. The 100X zoom is unusable, but the 30X is actually pretty good. And 30X is a lot. Like you can get to see, some pretty cool stuff. So getting to test both of these is zooms is going to be pretty fun. So more on that soon. All right, should we talk the couple other products real quick?
Yeah, lightning round.
AirPods Pro 3. They're really good. Better than I expected. I'll be honest. Like, what else could you do? They were saying we're going to put a temperature sensor in, maybe a heart sensor. Okay. I already have a watch. Like I've got the heart sensor. I don't really need that. And this is something you couldn't find in leaks. But what they did was they doubled the power of the ANC, the noise cancellation, and they switched the design of them. So essentially, they look just at first glance they look exactly the same. But when you look closer, the tip at the end is sort of curved a little differently. It sits deeper into your ear ultimately, and then they changed the tips so that they're a mixture of foam and silicon. So I have a pair of really nice Sony XM5 earbuds that they use foam tips versus the earbuds that use silicon tips, AirPods Pro 2 that use silicon tips. These use a combination of the two. And essentially the bottom line is they just get a little bit better seal on your ear. But because of those two things, because the temperature, the heart sensor is nice. A temperature sensor would have been better. Maybe I asked them about that. They could do that next year because they basically said the ear, you can see, we could do other health things. But what makes these, the reason you'd want to get them is the ANC they say it's twice as good. I think it's actually more than that. I'll be honest, because when I did them and they did a simulation in the room where it in the demo. So this was not under embargo. This was just during the demos on the thing. It was in the room. They put airplane noise, and then we put the AirPods Pro 3 in, although those of us that were getting the demo, put it in ANC mode. I was like, oh, snap. Like it was very noticeable. Because today, earbuds just don't get very good ANC, right? It's just not that great. These were I describe it as 80 to 90% as good as AirPods Max, or 80% to 90% as good as the Sony XM5 over-the-ear earbuds. Both of those are $450 and $350. Sorry, $450 and $550 earphones. Headphones.
Y'all, yesterday when I was waiting for the bus in New York City, I saw a man sitting next to me. His AirPod fell out of his ear and it landed on the sidewalk. Not even joking, on a roach. Like literally the roach was actively moving on the roach. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, thank goodness Apple addressed this. And I was like, they should actually include this in their ads. But yes, the fit and heart rate monitor to me is a big deal because you know me, I've tried
Apple Watch
many wearables and I just can't stick with them. I tried them for 2 weeks. I'm like, this is great, and I can't ever use them again. So that's great for that, especially for walks and runs, because now they don't fall out of your ear, so you don't have to worry about that. So I feel like those two. And then we talked about this very briefly earlier. Jason, I think you demoed it on site too, but you said that the actual live translation in the AirPods works really well, which I think is a really cool feature too.
So I'm going to test this against, the Google did this too, right? But in the demo that I saw, where they basically had a Spanish speaker come in, speak to us in Spanish and translate, it worked better than any live demo I've ever been in. And I didn't think really Apple was capable of that because they're really behind on Google, let's be honest, like on, and even others on a lot of this feature because they've just been working it longer. Like Google Translate's been around for a long time. It's really good. It has over 100 languages in it, right? It's like so good. But this as a sort of just for the languages that it works in, which is about 5, 8, I think it launched. Some of these are going to launch later this fall, they said, including like Mandarin and Korean and maybe Italian are launching later this fall. But some of the other ones, don't quote me on that, but they're like 5 languages, Spanish and French and some of the others that are going to work, at launch. A Spanish speaker speaking to us, it worked very well. And she talked like normal. It wasn't like,
me. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't like demo, version, right? Like it was, she sort of talked to us normal. And then we spoke, somebody on the Apple team spoke and it translated to her and we could sort of see it. So that was really good. That's more so on the iPhone because it processes it on the iPhone and then runs it through the AirPods, which is nice. And this is going to be available on the live translation will be available on AirPods Pro 2 and AirPods 4, as long as you have a phone that will run Apple Intelligence. So that tells you a lot of the heavy lifting's happening on the phone. So good for Apple Intelligence. Like it shows that they've done some nice work on that. But that feature was strong. And AirPods Pro 3 are another one I wouldn't normally upgrade if you got the last version, right? You can usually skip versions on most products. If you have an AirPods Pro 2 and you use them every day and you really like them, and maybe sometimes you use over-the-ear headphones for, like airplane rides, flights, and because of the better ANC, you'll probably want to get the AirPods Pro 3. I will no longer take over the ear headphones on the flight if I've got AirPods Pro 3. And that I love because it helps me to sleep. It helps me to concentrate, all of that. I like it better. They also, the bigger headphones have better battery life. We'll see how the battery life is. I'll eventually test that and we'll write about it on ZDNet, but yeah.
Kerry, give us the skinny on the Apple Watches before we run out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Apple Watch, sorry, we're going to cut you off, Jason. There are 3 Apple Watches, Apple Watch Series 11, Apple Watch SE 3, Apple Watch Ultra 3. I would say biggest announcement, probably the enhanced health features across the board with the hypertension tracking, with all the WatchOS 26 features that are coming out. Watch Ultra 3, it's got a larger display. I think it's by like maybe 0.000 something millimeters, but it's still considered the largest watch display that Apple's made. Biggest thing for me out of all 3 watches, I think, and this has been, I believe, the consensus across the board with wearables reviewers and editors, including Nina from ZDNet, is that the Watch SE3 is probably the sleeper pick here. It's gotten a lot of these features that Apple's announced for it's only its flagship watches over the past couple of years. All of those things have sort of trickled down to its budget, most affordable watch. Starts at $250. It's got the double pinch, the WatchOS 26 features, a lot of the similar tracking features as well as the Watch 11 and Ultra 3. And so, yeah, I mean we're gonna test all 3 watches. Obviously, they cater to different audiences, different price points, but I think all 3, from what we've seen so far, all the announcements and new features, they cater well to each one. So, yeah, we'll see how it is.
Unlike the other 2 products, this one I would not recommend people on the last version upgrade. There's not enough in these, not really anything in these that would get you to upgrade if you were on the last version of the Ultra or the regular watch to upgrade to the new one. SE gets a lot of things from the last version to this version, but I think the SE is more of a first time Apple Watch user product anyway. So if you're on the SE1 like you probably are going to go to the regular Apple Watch, this year, or the Ultra if you're into that. But this is not a year-over-year upgrade story with the watches this year, but they did make some nice improvements. They just have work to do. They added sleep score, which is good. So they just have some work to do to catch up with rings, because rings are doing better sort of data actionable insight features than what Apple is doing with Apple Watches right now. I wrote a story about, like, I've tried multiple rings. I keep going back to Apple Watch. You can read that story. So, that said, there's, Apple needs to do more on the software side in order to keep that thing moving forward. All right, Let's take just a couple minutes and talk about Meta Connect, because smart glasses are one of the most popular products on ZDNet so far in 2025. And we expected to get a couple new ones. We talked about that on last week's show, so you can listen to that to hear a little bit more of our predictions our analysis of what's been reported and projected. Let's talk about our predictions for Meta Connect this week, because Meta they are the iPhone. The Meta Ray-Bans are the iPhone of this category right now, but there's a bunch of new smart glasses coming this fall. We've got Google, Samsung, Rocket, Even Realities, Brilliant Labs. There's a lot coming. Halliday, if they get their act together, there's a bunch of stuff happening. What do you all think we're going to see from Meta? What are your predictions that we see from Meta this week?
We need in-lens, I think, displays, and which you've both talked to me before that they are predicted, but I think that's really what's going to shoot the Ray-Bans or Meta's popularity of the Ray-Bans to the next level, right? Because right now they're cool, but I think they're really mostly aimed for content capturing, in my opinion. That will really make it like a true AI kind of companion or just assistant that you could use throughout the day.
Yeah, for me, it's sort of a spin-off of Sabrina's answer. I think the display stuff will obviously get the most attention. The thing that I'm looking at is exactly what apps and services Meta is going to pitch with those. I'm sure, yes, it will function as a viewfinder for some of the photos and videos you capture. I'm sure it'll show things like navigations on maps since you're walking around town. But I'm definitely interested in seeing what else they develop, what other use cases that they're going to pitch, because I think that's the biggest thing that's going to separate them from really every other pair of smart glasses that we've seen, some of which already have those those displays built into the lenses. So yeah, that's my pick: the apps, the services, and obviously just how they work with developers to build around the new form factor.
And what I want is better cameras in them, and I want a better software interface. So we may not, I'd love to see them still have ones like that are under $500 that have 4K video and like better quality photos in it, and photos that can switch between landscape and vertical. Between wide and long. So and what I'd like is a preview on my phone, even, right? Like if I could preview on my phone, if I don't have an in-lens display, if I could just hold my phone up and preview. And I know some people say, well, if you have your phone up, just take your phone. Okay, sure. But also
to frame the shot, maybe.
To frame the shot, so I can learn how to frame it. And then I think eventually I won't need it, right? But if there was a better, let me frame it, even they work. It's interesting. I think they'll be able to do this on Android easier than iOS, because on Android, there are some features that are a little bit better than iOS with the Meta Ray-Bans. So for example, when you download, when you take a photo or a video, it downloads directly your Android phone right away. Whereas on iOS, you have to accept, yes, connect to the Wi-Fi on the glasses, and then it does it. That's not great. So this might be more likely to happen on Android than iOS, which is like, let me look at, and view it. Let me have a better viewing experience to learn how to frame it or switch back and forth between landscape and portrait. So if they do some better, photography, video stuff, I think what's already like a really good, surprisingly good product could get, a lot better. One thing we're not going to see yet is glasses that are run off of Qualcomm's new chip, the AR1 Plus. That one has a bunch of upgrades to photography. It has it'll run large language models on the glasses themselves, so it's going to be a lot faster, better AI features. So a lot of the features that I'm most excited about, I don't think we're going to see from the Meta this week. I think they're going to have to wait until next year when the AR1 Plus chip gets upgraded. Sabrina, you're likely to hear more about that and bring back some more details when you're at when you're at Snapdragon Summit, Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit at the end of this month, where you're likely to see some demos of some of that stuff. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what you learn there, because that's going to tell us a lot about the smart glasses we're going to see in 2026. Probably a deluge of them announced at CES in January, which we'll all be there for that. But there's actually some really, I think, innovative stuff coming with smart glasses next year. I don't think we're going to see that much that's all that huge or is going to matter too much at Meta Connect this year. We're likely to see two glasses, an audio-only pair of AI glasses, and then these like AR glasses where you see a display in one eye and gives you a look at what the future could be and could be kind of fun to see. But the real big stuff is going to come most likely next year.
Yeah, and I hope Meta pulls an Apple and just hopefully keeps the price of the original Meta Ray-Bans the same, even though they'll have those upgraded features. I think the $299 starting price is a pretty good sweet spot. It's good enough, obviously, to popular consumers and to enthusiasts as well. And from there, they can customize it. Maybe there will be a 2 terabyte version that costs $2,000 as well.
All right. Thank you, all of our friends of ZDNet across the world. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next week with more on what happened at Meta Connect, as well as ZDNet will have started some of its reviews of the Apple devices. So we'll have some more on that. And then we'll talk about other things in the world of technology as well. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.
Bye, everyone.